site education centre to a eco hamlet. We've had a lot of inquiries from developers to ask whether we can do this in a start to finish way, because Zaytuna Farm was set up and developed over a period of time, nearly 20 years, not quite. Okay, and it was developed with educational processes to give people experience. And myself and my wife more or less went into debt to do it continuously, and then at the end got out of debt through opening it up as a community system with 8 houses. So initially it's all about intention, to set a system up where you intend to achieve a sustainable result for the environment and for the people, and to be able to return any unnecessary amounts of surplus back into the system to make it a better place to live. And that's literally what we're doing. It's all done. It's happening now. That film there is about 2 years old, I think, and now most families are in position, and they've either built a house or they're building a house and they're setting up. We set this up in a particular way that fits more or less with Sharia law, although that's not actually spoken that way, but that doesn't matter, because that's the way we wanted to live. So our intention was to live within Sharia and with environmental benefit to the land and health and wellness and happiness to the people. So we wanted to set it up so that we didn't make mistakes with people coming to live there and living outside of that intention. So that was very specific, because there are different communities in the area we live that are quite different. Now, we have a little bit of an advantage in our area. We have more intentional communities per capita than anywhere on planet Earth in northern New South Wales. We live in an area called northern New South Wales. New South Wales is a state. We live in the northeast corner. So just below Brisbane, which is in Queensland, we're in the top of the next state, New South Wales. So northern New South Wales, I'll just repeat myself, has the largest number of intentional communities per capita on the planet. So, and that's an event that's happened since the 70s. So there's nearly 45 years of experience of getting it wrong in many ways, which is a good thing, because when you make a lot of mistakes, you learn how to stop making mistakes or learn from the mistakes and work out how to get it right. So our legal systems we had to set up legally. It's a totally legal system recognised by the government. We had to set it up in a way that works legally and deals with all the issues that people have had. So our legal system comes with that experience. So our constitution is set up to deal with all the human issues. And people are complicated. If it wasn't for people, permaculture would be much easier. But when you've got to deal with people, you've got to deal with lots of things, because people have issues, and just normal issues, really. But sometimes people don't get on. Sometimes people are in relationships that separate. Some people pass on and leave inheritance. And when we look at that in relation to Sharia, a lot of it's already dealt with, right? Because that's what we have as Sharia law, how we deal with things. So if you can use that as your intentional guideline and bring that into a legal framework, you can use the experience of northern New South Wales and it's constitutions that we've developed to actually work. Right? So then you can lay in, well, whatever other law, whatever other frameworks you want in the constitution, like obviously totally organic, no chemicals involved. Whether you want guns or you don't want guns on a property is one that comes up. Whether you want domestic animals like pets, or should they only be useful pets? Whether you allow noise pollution or no noise pollution, whether you allow lots and lots of unsightly garbage, whether you want weeds or no weeds. There are lots of things that come up about setting a constitution up. And then there are a few ways you can set up the land ownership. What do you buy? Because there is a system where you can just buy, it's called community title where we live, where you can buy an area within a property and you own that title inside the property, and you can sell it separately, and you agree to work together to manage the rest of the land, called the common area. So there will be lots of little titles inside one big piece of land and a management of the remaining area. And that has not always worked because some people just don't get involved in the larger area. We set up what has been called in the past a multiple occupancy. Today it has a new name legally. It's called a rural land sharing community, where we all equally own the farm. We all own the farm together. What Sam owns is all of Zaytuna Farm. What I own is all of Zaytuna Farm. What our wives own are all of Zaytuna Farm. So we equally own it all. And so we equally have to work out how we manage it all. And we equally have to agree on what is our personal use area. In other words, we have a more private area inside the farm around our house, and we agree as a community what area that is. There's nothing legal about it. It can't really be enforced in law. It's a personal agreement. What we have, though, is we have equal title of the whole land. When you do that, where we live, the value of each title, where each share, we call it a share, is not as much as community title. If you just want to make money, you make more money out of a community title where you have a share, a legal share within inside the property. But we're not about making money. I see that as kind of futile. It's really not about making money. It's about making life, making a good life. If you just want to make as much money as you can, as quickly as you can, it's the end of the world. That's what's mostly wrong with the world. If you want to put it in really simple terms, people are just out there to make as much as they can, as quick as they can. If everybody does that, we're going to run out of the world.
Is this to prevent, excuse me.
That's right.
Is this to prevent people from buying and hoarding just to have investments set into the same community? Is this to prevent
Maybe.
people from coming?
I mean, if you have a community title like we have, a rural land sharing community, the value of that share is less than if you have a community title, which is a community, but each shareholder has a legal title within the property.
You're using the same term for both multiple occupancy versus community title, yeah?
Yeah, community title is a community, but you have a legal title within the property. Right? There's two ways you can do it. As in the title. This is in Australia. We've preferred us all to have an equal share because we have an equal responsibility. But there's also a way that we have certain control a little bit of control about the way people live with us, how we live together.
So, can I help clarify?
Yeah.
So just to clarify, for the angle Geoff's talking about at the moment, everyone understand me all right? My accent's not too bizarre? Yeah, I'm good? Okay. I'll keep going, you stop me if it's not working. But they're just land use legality differences. So there's a bit of an art and a craft in the region that we live in, where people have thought long and hard about the legalities, because we live in an increasingly bureaucratic world and the words you put on paper do matter. And so the difference that Geoff's talking about is there is a title called community title, and then there's a land share agreement called a multiple occupancy. That's in Australia. Multiple occupancy just means it's one land that you can build multiple houses on. How the person owns the house is then another legal step, where what actually happens, we build a company owns the land, we own shares in the company, we actually don't own the land, we don't even own, but the only things that we own on the land are the things we put on the land, like a brick.
That's what you don't want, right?
Remember, that's what we've done.
That's what you've done.
That's what we've done. So that in the end, we've got this company, we're going to run it at a loss, we're not going to put it in any situation where it could ever go bankrupt, and that company is just sitting there owning the land for us, and we're just shareholders. And so that allows the company to have a constitution which governs the land and allows us to have our separate rules and separate laws. But a community title means that everyone does own their own parcel of land. That means everyone pays rates on their own parcel of land. That means you can't build a constitution. It's more like an apartment block with strata. Like it's like someone controlling an apartment block and you own your apartment. That's more what community title is, but spread out across land. The other one is you've got land and you've bought shares in a company that owns that land, and that's why it's worth a little bit less than community title. Community title, you're buying a flat, but multiple occupancy, you're buying into a company. So you can't get a bank loan for buying into the company, but you can get a bank loan to buy a flat. No.
So we had to set up a company. We called it El Causa, right? That's the name of the company. And Nadia and I had to sell the farm to the company. And the company could only have, or we set the company up to have 8 sharehold families, because we could only put 8 houses on the land. That's what our local government allowed us to do for that size land and that type of land. There's a way they assess land to say that type of land of that size, you can only have so many houses. And we were allowed 8 houses. So we actually set it up with 16 shares, 2 per house. So we literally had to sell the land. We had to create a company and sell the land to the company, and my wife and I were the only shareholders. But it allowed us to sell the other shares. And that's how we've done it. But to sell those shares, people want to know, what's the constitution of the company? Because when you buy and agree to live by that constitution. That's the key bit. That's what makes the value. But for people who just want to make money and they don't care, that's why they don't want to buy in. Now, oh, you're telling me how I should live. You're telling me rules by which I should live. So it also allows us, because of that, to live with people with our values, the values we want to live with. One of the reasons we're doing this, or the biggest reason, is wanting to live with the right kind of people, the right kind of community. And really, when you look at our constitution, it fits into Sharia law. It doesn't say that. It could say it, but we didn't want to say that. We're not in an Islamic country. Right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all that you don't use that word. Right? So when you do it this way, there's a little loophole that means you can set up a lease agreement where, although you're a shareholder in the company, you lease the right to build a house. And you can borrow against that. You can borrow money to do that. Of course, if you can find an interest loan in Islamic law. But it also means that if people start living outside the Constitution and they've signed an agreement to buy in and live by that Constitution, if they start living outside of it, the other shareholders can agree legally, you can stop them living there. You can't make them sell their share, but you can stop anybody living outside of the Constitution if you want to. They can rent it to someone else who agrees to live by the Constitution. If they sell their share to anybody, that person buying is agreeing to live within that Constitution.
Geoff, does that mean that the other 7 shareholders have to agree to have this new shareholder join?
No, not necessarily.
Wow.
If you want to, you set the rules. If that's what you want to put in as a rule.
Yeah, my grandfather started one in the 80s, and they had a process where over 6 months they'd vet you. So you come onto the property and you go, okay, I want to buy in. They're like, cool, you can settle the deed after 6 months, and if we like you, you can stay. If we don't, you have to find another person. And that's how it went. Which for you can imagine personally, if you buy into the place or you own a share in the place and you want to sell, your life changes, your life situation, whatever, then you've got to go through a potentially 6 month, year-long, 1.5 year, 2-year process before you can liquidate the property and move on. It's a little bit of a...
Have you had the experience of having to request shareholders to leave?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
But
good to know.
we're ready if we have to, because for us, that's one of our securities. But just to let you know some of the things that are in position, there's no electricity. You have to create your own. Now, Zaytuna Farm has never been connected to electricity, and I've lived there over 20 years and run a whole community development. So there's an education centre, there's a campsite, there's a commercial sized workshop, all running off solar. People don't seem to realise we sold our house, which was a very alternative house. The first house on the site was my own personal house. It's a straw bale house. It's a very alternative looking house, and it's always been solar. I've lived on solar for over nearly 30 years now. Never connected to the grid, never feeding back to the grid, on batteries. Now, we sold that house to someone who wanted to buy a share, and Nadia and I built a brand new house, and we purposely built a brand new modern house. Like it would look perfectly normal in a brand new suburb in America or Europe or here. You wouldn't think it was an alternative house. It is facing the right way and things. It has a natural swimming pool. It has air conditioning. It has a dishwasher. It has a washing machine and a dryer. It has everything that a modern house, and it's completely off-grid, solar. It has, now, there's no sewerage we clean our own grey water and our own black water with biological cleaning, with reed beds. All of the houses are the same. When you buy into Zaytuna Farm, you have to be prepared to catch your own drinking water. We're not connected to water. We catch our own water. We drink rainwater. We always have. We have a ridiculous amount of drinking water. In fact, there's an enormous amount now, as everybody has a 115,000 gallon tank on their house, and there's 115,000 litre tanks in the common area. That's $1 million worth of water if you put it in bottles. If you trust water that comes out of the sky, my advice to you is if you don't trust water coming out of the sky, you need a breathing apparatus, because you don't trust the air that you're breathing either then, right? Because that's where the water's coming from, right? It's coming through the air, and if it's getting polluted from the air you're breathing, right? So I would sort of get over that sort of idea. But and having had a conversation with someone today here, they were kind of shocked that I have a house that provides a very modern lifestyle on solar batteries system. And that for me, I wouldn't dream of doing anything else. And that we catch all our own rainwater and we deal with all our own waste on site. So you don't have to be connected to the outside world at all. Physically, you don't have to be connected. We drive cars in and out, that's about it. There is no connection, there's no supply line coming onto the property of any type. There used to be telephone lines, but who has a telephone line? Nobody. No. I just want to verify to you that is absolutely easy to achieve. That's not hard to do at all. And often it's cheaper than what you have now. And of course, there's no more bills once you've got it. You pay once and it's all over. So that's one of the conditions of buying in. Nobody's connected to the outside world. We don't have any problem with that. And basically, we're all trying to grow our own food. Now, some of that is a bit of community action, because we have our own milking cows and we share a bit of that. But mostly people got their own gardens, their own fruit trees, and their own chickens, and some their own goats and things. And I just want to verify something here. Having worked on carbon neutral cities proposals, they've never happened. Having worked on Masdar City in Abu Dhabi, a $22 billion project. Having worked with some of the most academic, technical experts in the world on carbon neutrality, 40% of the energy in any city, 40% is the energy needed to provide the food. If we all stop driving cars in Kuala Lumpur, and we all stop using electricity, and we all stop pumping water, and we all stop processing our sewage and wastewater, it would only take out 60% of energy consumption. Almost half, just less. 40% is the energy needed to provide you with food. So no matter how technical you get, you'll only get the 60% carbon neutrality without food being provided in a way that doesn't consume energy. So the most energy saving thing you can do in your life is grow some of your food. There's nothing you can do that is saving more energy for effort than that. So that we share, and not when I say we share the experience. So we help each other know how to do it better. and sometimes that's international. Where's Afif? Afif's over here, from Indonesia, who actually, by request, asked if I grew chaya, which I didn't know about. I mean, all the time I've been growing different weird foods, and she is very much likes chaya. And I'm thinking, what? You know, chia? No, I grow chia. No, chia. I don't want to grow chia. It's too hard to process. No, chaya. And I'm like, what? And it's a cut-in, you probably know it, a leaf crop, perennial. And we didn't have it. So someone who's volunteering on the farm to get experience asks about a plant, and now we're growing it. It's rampant, by the way. It's going crazy. And I'm spreading it all across northern New South Wales, right? You know, it's not just within the property that we're sharing, but people are coming and sharing stuff, and we're going, wow, I didn't know about that. Like, it's a sharing experience to make life easier, especially on the food level, but on all the levels. It's much easier when you've got people cooperating. How you do that? By intention, you need to set up a constitution that works. And then it all starts getting easier. For us, we had a property that had been well developed physically. So as designers, Sam and I, as consultants and teachers and implementers, the first thing we do, 1, 2, 3, is water. What's the possibilities of water on land? Drinking water and irrigation water and soaking water and holding water. What are the water patterns? What are the access patterns? Water, access, and then what are the structural positions? Where are we going to put the physical structures, the built systems? So before we do any other stuff, when we look at land, we go water, access, structures. Having looked at the climate very carefully and the landscape profiles. In Malaysia, you have specific climate, very specific. You're equatorial, you're the opposite to a desert. In fact, deserts are enormous amounts of evaporation over rainfall. You're enormous amounts of humidity over evaporation. You're the opposite at the equator here. And you have quite a lot of specific landscape profiles.
Can I just add to that, Geoff?
Yeah.
So what Geoff's describing, this is kind of like a template. He's trying to simplify the concepts of permaculture design. So as designers, when we arrive to a site, land is infinite. There's infinite complexity to land. That's what makes being a designer an incredible thing to do. It is infinitely entertaining, infinite possibility, endless food for thought. But in order to simplify these processes, in order to arrive to something that's going to be not only wonderful, but achievable, doable, and sustainable, we have to simplify the infinity of this world to its patterns, to understanding its basic fundamental patterns. And in order to do that, we look just very broadly, we try to understand how the area of the world we're in works. So we try to understand the climate and the landscape. Those are our fundamental two. So what is the climate? Does it rain all the time? Is it warm all the time? What does that mean? Those sorts of things. Then the landscape profile, is it steep? Is it flat? If it's steep, what does that mean? Does it mean water runs fast? If it's flat, what does that mean? Does it mean it floods? So we start to understand those different dynamics and relationships that we have. And then we have to start harmonizing with the forces that go onto that land. So the fundamental one is water. So if I'm in a very wet place, how does water flow across my landscape? How does water interact with my life? If I'm in a very dry place, what does that mean to me? How does water still flow across my landscape? But how does its limit affect my life, and what do I have to do to increase that limited resource? So that's our first step. Once we've analysed, okay, so it rains this much, the climate is this, the landscape is this. Once we have a basic understanding of that, our natural next step, the natural next step is just water. What do I need to know about water to harmonise with this land? Then, and only then after, will I look at how I access around my land. So I've identified, okay, here's a good spot for me to store water. Here's a good spot for me to grow fish. Here's a good place for me to collect water for me to drink. Here's a really wet spot. I could dig a hole. I could grow wet crops on that spot. Those sorts of things. I've harmonised with that relationship, harmonised with that part of water. And now how do I access? Obviously, I'm not going to try and drive my car through that swamp. Yeah. So what did my water design? Maybe I went, okay, I want a rice paddy. I'm going to make a little berm to hold back the water in my rice paddy. That's naturally made a spot that's dry, as opposed to the wet spot underneath. Maybe that would be a natural place to go, okay, harmonising with that water, I'm now going to put a road that won't erode, that won't get hit by forces of water coming down and hitting it. So I've gone just naturally step by step. The landscape's shown me what's the logical, sustainable, non-expensive thing to do. If I put a road in the wrong spot, I'm going to fix it every year. There's going to be a torrent of water that's going to wash away that road every year. I'm going to have to go and fix it. It's expensive and it's silly. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of resources. Why would I do that? If I had have harmonised with the water in the first place, had have identified how the water flowed, I avoid that mistake straight away. I don't even need to consider the mistake. It's gone. Then I did structure. Then I did access. Now I'm looking at structures. Because I can go, okay, I need water to live. I need water for most structures. I need access to most structures. So now I can position my structures relevant to the access patterns of my landscape and relevant to the water of my landscape. With those different things, I can harmonise with the other features of use, of location, of where might be the best places to grow food, things like that. But it's clear to me because I've analysed water, access, and then structures. Everything else after that is just play. Everything else after that is fun. If you've laid the bones, you've laid good foundations, a house is an exciting thing to build. If you've laid poor foundations, it's a risky thing to build that's going to topple, for sure. So you just need something steady. Need that even, steady base to build upon.
The devil's in the details. Really it is. Like, you need to get... The skill as a permaculture designer is to get the really concise, simple main frame. It's not about which fruit tree goes with which plant or which plant goes with which chicken or whatever, you know. It's none of that. That's nothing. That's play school. It's easy. It's good fun. If you put a house that limits your water supply, if you position structures that limit what you can do with water or make your access more expensive, it's a big problem. You have to prioritize water first in every way, then access, and then structural positions. It falls into place just like a foundation. If you just go, oh, I want to put a house there before I've considered water and access, it all can get very expensive and dysfunctional.
I just got a client example. So I got this really dysfunctional client that built a really dysfunctional place in Australia. He had this place where he wanted to build a house a lot, and he had a very specific house that he wanted to build that works great in a dry climate but not in a wet climate, and we live in a wet climate. So he wanted to build this underground house that's going to have endless problems, going to leak a lot, but he wants it on this place that's got this amazing view, you know. He wants to build it in this place that's quite close to a valley, you know, could flood. Really not a good idea at all. And it's also a 15-minute drive like this through the forest. He'd already made the road, already cleared the area, knocked down forest, all that sort of stuff. And you arrive to the site, you're like, wow, this is terrible, terrible job. Like, how am I going to fix this? You know, you're kind of like, I just don't want you as a client. This is horrible. But you have to work with what you've got. And you think like all the steps he did wrong, every single one. He didn't think about his water till the end. He has to think he's gotten to himself like as high up as he can get in the property, done all this road to get up there, and like first question, how are you going to get the water to your garden? What's your plan? It's like, that's your job. It's like, yeah, from the beginning that would be easy. but why you give me the job now? So like the 15. So I asked him, because he'd been living there on site for 3 years. So, what did you do when it rained the other year and your road washed out? He's like, how did you know my road washed out? Well, that's a really good guess, wasn't it? So I just, like looking at the situation for him, yeah, he had money to throw at his site, but I can imagine maybe he sticks at it because he's really stubborn for 10 years. He loses a lot of money, he starts losing morale, and he thinks it's just impossible to live off grid. It's just an impossible thing. And he starts spreading lies, telling everyone how impossible this thing is, how horrible this idea of living with nature is. When he could have just avoided these ridiculous mistakes and given himself a really easy life and gone, actually, wow, this is quite gentle and quite wonderful life to live. And it's just, that's the difference between easy, beautiful life and a really, really hard life, living within nature.
So we'll open up for questions, if there are any. Let us know if there's anything we can answer for you.
There's also a mic on the lady side.
There you go. We've got a roving mic.
First, Assalamu alaikum. I want to say that I'm so happy to actually meet you in person. Can't believe it. Actually, I did a little small culture course with D. Turner in Newcombe. Anyways, I would like to know for Malaysia, for the purpose of this Kuala Lumpur, we all live in homes. How do we incorporate the principles of permaculture in whatever that is already established? Each of us have our own terraces, semi homes, or whatever homes that we live in. What can we do with what we have? Because the idea of permaculture is it's really a beautiful design concept philosophy. You have a piece of land, but a lot of us already living in homes. What can we do for ourselves at this point? Before we purchase that beautiful piece of land and get you both to come design it for us.
Before we teach you how to design it for yourself, probably. Tomorrow I do a presentation where I'll put up more layers of technology to show you how we use modern mapping to design and make it easier for you on land, because there is incredible appropriate technology. I mean, literally every 90 days there's new technology coming into our field, and although I'm a baby boomer, right, I'm trying to keep up with all that, with the state-of-the-art mapping. A lot of it's satellite, where you can see everything you need to know. But to answer your question, I have a student in Sydney that has a 20 square metre balcony. So 4 metres by 5 metres, let's say 20 metres, or 2 metres by 10. And she produces 70 kilos of food a year on a balcony. That's a very high value balcony per square metre. Of course, that won't feed you all, but it will give you a lot of vitality and health. There's a lot of enzymes in that fresh food when it's that fresh. And the smaller the area, the higher the production per square metre. A lot of people don't realise this. The most productive land is the smallest land per square metre.
I wanted to give another case study. So like there's a balcony garden in Hungary. So our friend, he works in Hungary, and even cold months, because you've got that added advantage. So in Hungary it gets very cold, it gets very hot, but he got the added advantage of having living warmth surrounding his balcony garden. He was able to have 16 fruit trees, a productive vegetable garden on this tiny little terrace, and the way that he did it was four fruit trees fruited at different seasons. So he was able to prune the fruit trees so that the fruit trees went out on the terrace. So he had 4 fruit trees and his hanging vegetable garden over on the terrace. Bring the 4 fruit trees out when it was its season to fruit, get the sun, get the rain, get the water, and then bring it in when it wasn't its season and bring the other 4 out. Ridiculous. Just ridiculous stacking. But it can be like amped up and amped up and amped up, but it is, I'm sure, you get to a point, or just a breaking point in your own heart, where you go, where do I go to from here? Where do I go to from this? I've reached this level, I've perfected my terrace system. Where do I go to next? And that's a question that I think anyone living in a city who wants to look a little bit into the future and go, where's our food security going to come from in the coming years? Where's our security for anything going to come from in the coming years? What steps and plans do I need to make for my life and my children's life to ensure security and happiness for their lives? And I can guarantee you living in the heart of a city is probably not the right idea. So using the resources you have right now to build skills, to build knowledge, to build connection, to build love, beautiful, awesome thing to do. But going forward into your future steps, what legacy, what life do you want to leave behind you? Because I can guarantee from my own perception that this system isn't going to last. I don't think there's any historical example where a city system has lasted for a very long time and ended in a nice, easy, positive and beautiful way. I think we face something that could be a bit hard if we don't take the right steps now. I think it's well worth putting some energy and time thinking about how do I, personally, myself, with the resources I have, how do I create a scenario, either in Kuala Lumpur or outside of Kuala Lumpur, that's going to build a beautiful seed of resilience for the coming future.
Yeah, in your situation, you have a climate that's extremely humid. It's equatorial. You can see the buildings go mouldy, right? Quite new. So you need more evaporation. You need very well-drained situations. You've got to battle waterlogging. It can't be going totally saturated, which is hard when it's 98% humidity some of the time, right? But you have an advantage when you're on thermal mass like concrete verandas and concrete walls, right? Because that is thermal mass and it will help drain and dry out garden beds. That's a big part straight away with the soil. You need to physically make it drain, right? So some of your container gardens, they need to be actually off the balcony a little bit and allow them to drain. They almost need like a rock bed in the bottom so that you're getting a thermal mass draining. So physically, in the desert it's the opposite. Everything's an anti-evaporation strategy. Here it's encourage evaporation strategy. You don't have enough evaporation. You can see it in the buildings going mouldy. It's fascinating. In fact, I could write a whole book on your stormwater system in Kuala Lumpur. I mean, it's mad. No wonder you have mosquito problems, right? With the stormwaters out there. I was walking them today, fascinated by it all. And your weed systems are amazing. I love them, right? I love your weeds. I love weeds everywhere, but I love your tropical weeds. They are saviours. They're saviours of Earth. We've got the whole thing wrong about weeds. But anyway, you're talking about small gardens, you're talking about concrete verandas, and you're talking about little tiny blocks, well drained. You're talking about containers. It's literally like big pots. You have to keep feeding it. You're going to have to keep feeding it. It's not connected to a larger soil base, a larger soil ecosystem that has large tree root interactions with fungi, interaction with large colonies of bacteria. and you're going to harvest like crazy. You're going to get a lot of production. There's no give without take. There's no take without give. In this situation, you have to bring in fertility or you have to produce fertility, and you had limited in space. Yes, you could have a bokashi composter on your kitchen bench. It still kind of has to get buried in the garden.
Yeah, that's right.
It's an anaerobic to aerobic soil bacteria system, right? You're really short of room.
Yeah.
You could have a worm farm and produce worm castings, but again, it's taking up room, right? So really, you have to bring in high quality compost.
Make your own.
You know, if you can get high quality compost somewhere else and bring it in, and you have to keep feeding your gardens. So two really big clues here is to make sure it's well drained enough, and you're increasing evaporation. You're favouring evaporation. You're too wet. It's wet when it's not even raining. It's humid when it's not even raining. It's never less than 80% humidity. You can't dry anything here. It's hard to dry your clothes. You know, you can't dry food here in this climate. It's impossible. And it's crazy to try and build a cellar. You'll kill yourself. I mean, it's dangerous to have a cellar. So just bear that in mind, because you're not going to avoid that. That's okay. So, well drained, and keep bringing in high quality food. Now, high quality food means soil additions that are bringing in beneficial soil life. It's not just compost. It's not just soil amendment. Ideally, it's compost that's full of beneficial bacteria and fungi. Mostly if you're growing non-woody plants, beneficial bacteria. So you know your non-woody plants are going to like soil that is mostly beneficial bacteria and a little bit of fungi. If you're growing woody plants like trees, it's the other way around. It's mostly beneficial fungi and a little bit of bacteria. It's just the way you go. It's bringing in that high quality stuff, and don't worry about overstacking it. Don't worry about cramming it in. Pay no attention to what it says in the books.
Okay.
None at all. Right? When it comes to spatial relationship, if you've got that set up right, you can type plant like crazy, because you're getting very high quality minerals. You're not likely to grow all your calories, right? You're not going to be growing cassava on your balcony, right? Or sweet potato or big root crops, but you're going to get high quality minerals. So the nutrient value is very high, and if it's less than 3 hours old when you eat it, you're getting enzymes that you can't get any other way. Right, so that's the great value in the small area. And then learn from what the system teaches you. That system will be your best teacher initially, because from that small tiny garden, then you'll be able to create a bigger garden, and from that slightly, if you get to it, you get to the bigger garden, it'll teach you to do an even bigger garden and a food forest and out to a farm. It's always from the inner core of intensity that you learn. It's your teacher from there.
10 minutes.
Hi, Geoff. Imran here. So the situation with solar, it's got a bit of how do you say, like when you mine to get lithium for the batteries and to make the solar panels. So is there an alternative to that?
Lithium?
You mine minerals to make batteries and to make the solar panels.
Yeah.
So is there an alternative to solar that?
Lithium ion now is guaranteed for 20 years. We think it will last 60, and it's still a convenient size. Nickel ion will last 100 years, but they're very, very large. Right? So we're all going lithium ion at the moment. And that's a much better alternative than the power station you're using right now that's running that, right? And the infrastructure that links back to it, which needs to be maintained, which if you look outside is a nightmare, right? So when you disconnect from all those wires that are in that street out there and all those poles and all, there's no comparison. By disconnecting to that little bit of mining compared to a dinosaur of mining, don't feed the dinosaur. Dinosaurs will eat you, right? Disconnect. You'll be using 1,000th of the resource. We don't have to have a utopian attitude about, oh, there's a bit of mining. Right? I mean, you can go nuclear if you want a power station that's really going to burn you, right, and have a few big problems. But all the infrastructure between here and that power station is enormous. It's absolutely massive if you add it all up. It's incredibly more efficient to use a little bit of lithium in a battery. Now, every 90 days, if you don't upgrade your technology, you're going extinct at this point in history. Every 90 days. Doesn't matter whether you're in the media industry or the tech industry, that's the reality of today. Sam's share right at the moment is trialing batteries that he might want to tell you about.
I got sodium batteries. So yeah, so they're not lithium, they're sodium, and it's pretty cool. Like they've got the same problem as nickel iron in that they're massive. I mean, each battery is almost 200 kilos. They're huge, really, really heavy. But the reality of lithium is it comes at the expense often of people's lives. Lithium's pretty sad game. There's horrible things happening around the world in the name of sustainable technology. A genocide is one of them. There's some pretty horrific things happening just so that we can have smartphones, just so that we can have all sorts of precious minerals. And these guys have been trying to figure out a way around that. Still got copper in it, still got cobalt in it, still got all sorts of nasty stuff in it. But the component in it that really makes it work, the sodium, is awesome. It's a huge leap. So sodium is just below lithium on the periodic table. So that's what it's looking at for energy potential. You know, helium's above lithium, but that's a bit hydrogen's above lithium. That's a bit scary. You don't really want a big ton of hydrogen in your house. So next step down to lithium. That's a little bit less scary, and sodium's salt. You know, it's table salt. So what they're looking at, what they've been doing is they've been able to extract sodium from salt, which we have an abundant amount of if we live anywhere near an ocean or a sea. And they've been turning it into batteries. Pretty cool. And that's something that's actually been done for a long, long time. Salt and water has been used to store electricity for a long, long time. The Egyptians did it and got records of it. There has been ways of storing electricity, storing energy at different times using really simple basic tech. But given a modern context, we can kind of amp it up, do some pretty cool stuff with it. So the opportunities within electricity are huge. You know, there's hydrogens in water. It's just scary stuff to play with. Sodium's in salt. It's way more benign. And lithium's pretty hard to get. It's pretty rare, but it's really light and it ticks all these other boxes. So when we're looking at energy, it's often a game of compromise, and that's something that you've got to juggle for your own conscience. Either you go live with candles in the woods, or you try and figure out how you bridge that gap for the majority of humanity towards that direction. And that's for your own conscience to settle. Am I justified playing a role in the genocide of a people to bridge that gap for the majority of humanity? Perhaps. Am I not? No, perhaps not. Yeah.
Sam's actually a test pilot, so it's a secret project that's going on in his shed, right, at Zaytuna Farm. We get sort of asked to test pilot a few crazy things. Right. So that actually is a secret. You can't find out much about those batteries, and they're under trial. But I like to get to the core of I like to try and get to the simple core of explaining permaculture systems, because permaculture is something that's obviously complex, and it's connecting system between multiple disciplines. It's very easy for us to get caught in complexity. So if you can come to the core truth right in the middle of each discipline, it makes it a little bit easier to hold on to the center. Whenever we decentralize, whenever we come back to small systems, we become more ethical and more efficient. So whenever you're looking at these sort of things, always look at like, what's the advantage of coming back to something simple, small, and decentralized? And it's very true with our convenience of this electricity. Right? It's so convenient to switch that light on and that comes on from some out there at some distant power station somewhere. If that pollution was in this room, we'd all leave. If the pollution for these lights and this electricity was in this room, we'd all get up and get out. But we can't see it. It's somewhere else. It's going up into the atmosphere. It's because it's centralized. It's the same with your food system. Hey, well, you could get oranges down the road from California that are organic. I've seen the most destructive organic farms. I've seen 800 hectares of carrots, organic. Nightmare. Nightmare in every way. Water, slavery, enslavement of people, massive amounts of transporting huge volumes of compost to get trendy organic carrots. Not ethical. Not something you should buy, but it's organic. So it's trendy. Yeah? It's fashionable. Don't get caught. Hey, you could fill the supermarkets in Kuala Lumpur with organic food from the other side of the world. It contains massive amounts of energy. That's not what we're talking about. So when you decentralize and you work out how you can do it better for yourself in the small ways, and as a community we can do it much better when we help each other, that's when we start to become civilized. That's when we become advanced and developed. That's when we start to really think. That's worth thinking about. And that's the excitement of permaculture, is those achievements. Right? And that's design. It's an ethical design science. It's about science and ethics. That's what permaculture is about, more than anything else. And that's what you've got to keep coming back to the core and the undeniable truth of what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you very much.
Geoff, can you take questions? We're going to close. Can you take questions after privately or? Yeah?
Alhamdulillah, thank you, Sam, for tonight. I'd like to thank Geoff and Sam and the family to be here with us. It's really an honor to have you and be part of the community. And if you have any more questions, you can, when you close the session, after the session, you can come and meet Geoff personally. And just come to the front and when you close the night. Thank you, everyone.
Officially, this field has been closed by 9:45. So, yeah. But the space is still.
Yeah, it's beginning.
But you're not closed, I mean, not closed, So officially, the event is ended. Or ending.
If it's still open, you can have a drink and
Thanks,
still going. The books downstairs, and if you purchase them, you help us to do more events like this for free. Inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.